What's up, everybody? Welcome back to A People's Historian, the show where we read about half an hour of history together. Excuse me. My name is Jason Kishinev, and we are reading State of War, The Secret History of the CIA and the Bush Administration by James Risen. We're going to finish up Chapter 1 this episode. If you enjoyed the show, hit the like and subscribe button. And let's dig in. The CIA's interrogation techniques were based on methods used in the training of U.S. Special Forces soldiers to prepare them for the possibility of being captured. The tactics were designed to simulate torture, but they are supposed to stop short of inflicting serious injury. Among the most controversial techniques approved for use on high-ranking Al-Qaeda detainees by CIA interrogators was something known as waterboarding, in which a prisoner was strapped down and made to believe he might drown. The assertions that the CIA's tactics stopped short of torture were undercut by the fact that the FBI decided that the tactics were so severe that the Bureau wanted no part of them. And FBI agents were ordered to stay away from the CIA-run interrogations. FBI agents did briefly see Abu Zubaydah in custody, and at least one agent came away convinced that Zubaydah was being tortured, according to an FBI source. Several CIA officials who are familiar with the way the interrogations of high-value Al-Qaeda detainees are actually conducted say that there are no doubts in their minds that the CIA is torturing its prisoners. Waterboarding is used not just once to simulate torture, but over and over again, according to one CIA source. According to several intelligence sources, a secret CIA report describes how Khalid Sheikh Mohammed was subjected to the application of several types of harsh interrogation techniques approximately 100 times over a period of 2 weeks. Prisoners have been forced into coffin-like boxes, forced into cells where they are alternately denied all light and put in brightly lit rooms and denied sleep for long periods, which is torture. They are subjected to long hours of extremely loud rap music. Eminem is one favorite, which sounds kind of comical, but it's really not funny. And they are forced to stand or squat in stress positions for hours at a time. If you read the interrogation reports, you see what is being done is torture, said a CIA source who had read some of the reports. It is the accumulation of all of the procedures and how frequently they are being used that makes it torture. The reports are horrifying to read. The CIA has refused to grant any independent observer or human rights group access to the high-level detainees to determine their physical and mental health. Supporters of the use of harsh or even abusive interrogation techniques have argued that they are necessary in a new and unconventional war against suicidal terrorists who don't abide by the traditional rules of war themselves. But many CIA officers and other critics of the interrogation tactics have warned that they are not effective because prisoners will say anything that they think their interrogators want to hear in order to get them to stop the abuse. And that's the truth, Bruce. Torture generates bad information. Such warnings have now proven accurate. According to a well-placed CIA source, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, the central planner of the 9/11 plot and the most important Al-Qaeda prisoner in U.S. custody, has now recanted some of what he previously told the CIA during his interrogations. This is an enormous setback for the CIA, since debriefings of Khalid Sheikh Mohammed had been considered among the agency's most important sources of intelligence on Al-Qaeda. It is unclear precisely which of his earlier statements Khalid Sheikh Mohammed has now disavowed, but any recantation by the most important prisoner in the global war on terror must call into question much of what the United States has obtained from other prisoners around the world, including those from Iraq. The CIA abuse scandal goes to the heart of George Tenet's post 9/11 CIA. In many ways, Tenet was a transitional figure, a CIA director who had the adroit political skills to straddle the pre- and post 9/11 worlds, and who had adapted his management of the U.S. intelligence community to both. But that straddle left him open to two kinds of criticism. Before 9/11, George Tenet's CIA faced criticism, including from many of the agency's own officers, for being paralyzed by political correctness and risk aversion. After 9/11, George Tenet's CIA began to conduct secret activities that deeply concerned some of the agency's own officers. Related to torture, one of the most troubling practices of Tenet's new CIA was the aggressive use of renditions, the practice of secretly transporting prisoners to other countries for interrogation, sometimes to Arab countries such as Egypt and Syria that are known to practice torture. The CIA conducted renditions for several years before 9/11, but the use of renditions and the kind of renditions conducted changed radically after the September 11th attacks. The CIA and the Bush administration have repeatedly stated that they do not send prisoners to other countries to be tortured, and that they received assurances from the governments of those countries that the prisoners will not be abused. But since 9/11, the practice has become so widespread, and enough people caught up in renditions have been released and gone public with their experiences, that the facts seem to belie the CIA's claim. While several rendition cases that involved innocent people or have otherwise gone badly have been documented in the press, many of the worst aspects of the CIA's rendition operations have remained hidden. One CIA officer, haunted by what he saw in one particular rendition, describes the case to the author. This author. This officer alleged that the CIA flew a prisoner from Afghanistan to a country in the Persian Gulf, where he was to be turned over to local authorities and imprisoned again, despite knowing that he was an innocent man who had been wrongly identified as a terrorist. The CIA officer said he believed that the CIA was moving the prisoner in order to hide its mistake. The officer said that when the prisoner arrived in the Persian Gulf country, the local security service fingerprinted the man and determined Alright, that's the end of the episode. No, I'm just kidding. The local security service fingerprinted the man and determined that he was not the suspect that the CIA had claimed it was turning over. The local security service refused to take the man into custody, and the CIA flew him back to Afghanistan. The CIA officer said he later found out that the man, who was from an African country, was a refugee who had purchased a passport on the open market for $50. The passport was in the name of a terrorist suspect. The man had been held by the CIA for months in Afghanistan without anyone at the agency correcting the mistake. The CIA officer also later was told that the CIA station chief in the prisoner's native country in Africa had sent cables to CIA headquarters stating that the agency was holding the wrong man. The CIA officer said he did not know what happened to the man after he was flown back to Afghanistan. Other CIA officials say that the account provided by the author sounds similar to a case that has been under investigation by the CIA's Office of the Inspector General. In the intense atmosphere after the September 11th attacks, even more radical and questionable operations were considered and planned. One such secret activity was codenamed Box Top. In 2002, according to CIA sources, the agency created a covert paramilitary unit whose mission was to go around the world to target terrorists. Whether the Box Top unit would have had the mandate to kill terrorists anywhere in the world, or simply to capture them and bring them back through the rendition process is unclear. But after the unit was set up and began training, it was disbanded, and Box Top never went into effect. CIA sources suggested that the agency's top management got cold feet over the prospect of turning the paramilitary unit loose. Today it is still difficult to obtain accurate figures on how many people are imprisoned around the world by the U.S. military and the CIA. The CIA is believed to be holding about 100 prisoners, including 2 or 3 dozen high-value detainees, but the agency won't confirm the identities of the prisoners in its custody. Another obstacle to tracking the CIA's prison population has been the agency's willingness to hide prisoners, keeping them off the books. Such ghost detainees sparked controversy when the practice was disclosed in Iraq. There has so far been relatively little accountability within the CIA for the allegations of abuse of prisoners in its custody. There have been isolated cases of reprimands and punishment. CIA officials have confirmed, for example, that one CIA employee was disciplined for threatening an Al-Qaeda prisoner with a gun during questioning, while separately, a contract employee was charged with beating a prisoner to death in Afghanistan. But there is no evidence that any top CIA officials have been disciplined or faced serious investigations into their actions. In that respect, the CIA is much like the U.S. military, where investigations into cases of prisoner abuse have focused primarily on low-level enlisted personnel rather than senior officers or top Defense Department policymakers. Indeed, the top Defense Department policymakers, when they're done with their jobs, go on to be military talking heads on mainstream news channels like MSNBC, CNN, Fox News. But a different legal problem for the agency could still emerge as a result of the agency's involvement in the secret renditions of prisoners out of Iraq. According to a CIA source, the CIA took the prisoners out of Iraq to be detained and interrogated in other countries. According to the CIA source, that practice appears to be in direct violation of the Geneva Conventions and could be defined as a grave breach under international law. Under a 1996 U.S. law, a grave breach of the Geneva Conventions constitutes a war crime in the United States, and so is a crime under federal law. The CIA's Inspector General has issued a criminal referral to the Justice Department on the matter, according to the CIA source. The establishment of a series of secret prisons around the world and the widespread use of harsh interrogation tactics against prisoners in American custody has been part of a broader and disquieting pattern by the Bush administration. The White House has interpreted the constitutional powers of the president to fight terrorism in such an expansive way that long-standing rules governing the military and intelligence communities have been skirted or ignored, and secret intelligence agencies inside the United States have been approved that might be violating the civil liberties of American citizens. That are. Might be is too gentle of a word. In particular, the technical wizards of the National Security Agency, which is what I was thinking, they're spying on everybody, and that is a clear violation of our constitutional rights. The technical wizards of the National Security Agency have been engaged in a program of domestic data mining that is so vast and so unprecedented that it makes a mockery, makes a mockery of long-standing privacy rules. That's the end of the chapter. But before I go into my spiel, there is a little bit at the beginning of this, which I wasn't gonna read, but they talk about sources. A source said this, a source said that, so often that I feel like I need to read this. And I think you'll see why. A note on sources. Many people have criticized the use of anonymous sources of late. Yet all reporters know that the very best stories, the most important, the most sensitive, rely on them. This book would not be possible without the cooperation of many current and former officials from the Bush administration, the intelligence community, and other parts of the government. Many of them were willing to discuss sensitive matters only on the condition of anonymity. And so that's why there's a lot of sources in the White House said this, sources in the Pentagon said that. Form your own opinions. I'm just reading the book. Hope you enjoyed that. If you did, hit the like and subscribe button. Hit the notification bell so that you get notified when I make new videos. And we'll see you on Chapter 2.